think I got a bite.
Yeah, that's Nico Moon. Love that song. Love the sound effects they put at the end of that. You know? Yeah. That was a lot of fun. And it's also a lot of fun when Shannon Mallory joins us from Oklahoma State County Cooperative Extension. All right, it's Tomato Talk time on KPNC. And if you want to call in to Tomato Talk, if you have questions for Shannon, you can do that. 767-1101. And Shannon, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much.
Tomatoes. I've been told that for the most part, planting tomatoes is foolproof, which is important for me because I am a complete fool when it comes to...
He's capable of killing any plant.
I am notorious. I am a mass plant murderer,
right.
And it's not good. I'm not proud of it.
They shiver, and plants shouldn't shiver.
They should.
They do.
When I walk into the garden area and people say, no, you, out of here, out of here.
Start turning around.
Yeah,
right. They turn away.
Don't
the
pick
opposite
me.
Of the sun.
Don't pick me. But it's not necessarily true. They are not foolproof, and there are things that you can do to increase your yield and the quality.
Certainly.
Yeah, let's talk basic tomato care. Let's start with the basics.
Yeah, let's build a foundation for it. Yes, a sturdy foundation. First off, raised beds work wonderful for tomatoes. A raised bed can be anything from just a box, a wooden box or something like that. Anything that allows water to drain through. So if you go to water it, you're going to soak it and not overwater it.
Okay.
You're going to put new potting soil or topsoil in there or something, and there's going to be nutrients in there, and your tomatoes are going to do pretty well. It wouldn't be foolproof, but
right.
It's pretty easy on those. Then we're going to put that tomato in somewhere that gets 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. Tomatoes like sunlight. Yeah. They don't like full sun all day, but they do like sunlight. They need that to grow. A basic fertilizer that you can find at your home and garden store is going to do a good job to boost that yield a little bit.
You say a basic fertilizer.
Right.
Is it necessary to go for like the super duper superhero, very super expensive fertilizer?
Honestly, too, you don't need much fertilizer for one tomato plant. Maybe about a teaspoon or maybe just a little bit more incorporated in the whole soil. It's really not much.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of them are labeled like 10-10-10 or 10-20-10. Those are just a basic fertilizer. It covers all your nutrients that you need, and it's going to give it the building blocks it needs.
So you're saying less is more?
Oh, don't get me wrong. You can pour the fertilizer on and it'll grow like crazy, but it might become top heavy or something like that. You run into some other problems.
Compost. How do we use compost?
Either you can put it right on top of the soil, and when you water it goes down, it kind of washes down in there, or you can incorporate it into the soil in the potting mix.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Very good. So, how do we water? Is there a better way to water your tomato plants?
If you want to get real fancy, you can do drip irrigation, like some people do in their yards and landscapes with the little tiny hoses and stuff. Otherwise, the number one thing you want to make sure you don't do is splash the dirt up onto the leaves, because that's going to kick the bacterial and the fungus inside that soil onto those leaves and possibly be a vector to get into the plant, which, if a sick plant is sick, hurts its yield.
Yeah. I am thinking that you are a drip hose kind of guy. I'm thinking not only are you a drip hose kind of guy, but you have a timer on the drip hose, and you don't even have to worry about it.
I do not. I am pretty cheap. I mean, I'll take this little mug here and pour the water on it or something, And like I said, with a raised bed, if you're doing it with raised bed gardening, you can put too much water on and it's going to drain properly, and you're not going to overwater that plant.
Right, okay.
So that's why we do the raised beds for a lot of our fruits and vegetables.
All right. Well, let's talk ripening. By the way, if you have a question about your tomato plants, you want to get them answered, this is the guy. This is the Agriculture Extension Educator with County OSU Extension, Shannon Mallory, 767-1101. You'll be on Tomato Talk.
Tomato Talk.
On KPNC.
Yeah, so tomato ripening, if currently, like we're sitting right now, if the temperature's over 86 degrees, they won't really turn red as quickly as they normally do. So right now, with the heat spell that we look like we're going to have coming up in the next 2 weeks or so, we're going to go ahead and take those tomatoes off the vine when they start turning that orangish, yellowish color, when they start changing color from the green.
So you don't wait until they get perfectly red?
During this time of year, yes. When it's warm. When it's warm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you'll cut those off. They'll be a little bit firm compared to normal, but we can set them inside our home. Some people set them on a windowsill and have success, but somewhere where it's going to be about 70 degrees.
Okay.
And they're going to ripen on our windowsill or on our kitchen counter or something like that.
Oh,
they
fantastic.
should be just fine. They might be missing just a tiny bit of the sugar they get from natural ripening, but they're going to be doing good. They're going to be homegrown tomatoes.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing like homegrown tomatoes.
Right, exactly.
Seriously. Here's a question. If you, if the tomatoes start getting super ripe, is there a way to slow down or arrest the ripening process?
I don't believe so. That is a natural process that's going to do it. You can put them in the refrigerator, and it might extend it about 5 or 6 days or so, but it's still going to try to ripen, and it's a plant. It's trying to put on seeds and grow more, so it's going to ripen that fruit and try to break down so that the seeds are ready to become new plants.
So what do? You have a plant, 2-3 feet tall, nice, full green, and no tomatoes.
Oh, that's frustrating, isn't it? Because it looks like you feel like you're doing everything right.
Yeah. Plant looks good. You talk to it every day. Everybody, is in a good mood.
You talk to it nicely as well. You're not like making fun of it or something.
You can do it.
Why aren't you making tomatoes?
No.
Yeah. So first off, we want to ask: do we have determinate or indeterminate varieties of tomatoes? There's two main types.
What do you look underneath it, or
Determinate tomatoes put on fruit only during a certain time of year. So you may have a determinate variety that's not ready to put on fruit yet. If you have an interdeterminate, that's more like our heirloom varieties that put on fruit throughout the whole year. So if we put on fruit throughout the whole year and we're not having tomatoes, now we know we've got a little problem going on. Yeah. And usually what it is at night it's not getting cool enough. It's too warm. And tomatoes need somewhere around 70 to 85, and I even think 85 is a little on the high end, but they need that cooler temperature to set that fruit. So keep that plant. It's a healthy plant. Wait until August or September when we start to see the cooling.
Yep. All right. Well, we have a question. Ron is listening this morning. Ron, you're on Tomato Talk. What are your questions for Shannon Mallory?
I've tried to have them vine ripened where they stay on till they're good and red. He may have kind of answered this indirectly, but when I leave them to get kind of vine ripened, they start getting cracks on them, and I didn't know if that's heat, too much water. That's one question, and then also mine are in the direct sunlight, and they kind of the leaves kind of curl by the end of the day. Is that too much heat?
Oh, good questions, Ron. Thank you for being with us on KPNC. A couple of really good questions.
Yep. So we touched a little bit on vine ripening. If it's recent, if we are recent in the past couple of weeks here where he was doing that, it probably is where it's going to take longer to ripen on the vine. It gets kind of sun scalded and starts to crack on that outside skin. So that's one of the reasons we want to take it off. Also, tomatoes are just vectors for little bugs and pests, and it'll start to ripen and it's sweet, and then those tomato hornworms or other types of pests go get it, and now you can't eat it or you don't want to eat it because it looks unsightly.
Right.
Yep. So pick them as they just start to turn orange. They will still be sugary and sweet. If you can keep the pest off them, you can keep them vine ripened. But he mentioned the leaves curling on it.
Yeah.
That could be a multitude of things. Usually, I'm not expecting this time of year because we've been getting plenty of rain, but it's usually not getting enough water, and you can maybe stretch out your watering or something like that. Otherwise, there could be a couple of things where maybe if you had sprayed your yard recently, tomatoes are pretty susceptible to some herbicides, and some of those symptoms of the herbicides is curling.
Okay.
Overall, if the plant as a whole is looking good and it's perking back up every time you water it or something like that, it should be doing pretty well. They're pretty resilient plants if you do routine care.
Very good. Well, Ron, we hope those answers answer your questions. If you have a question, we have time for one more if you want to call in. 767-1101. Hi, you're on Tomato Talk. What are your questions?
Okay, just a minute. I got to get away from the radio.
Very good.
Okay. I've had someone tell me that I need to prune my tomato plants. They are, they're probably 8 to 10 foot tall. They're pulling the cages right out of the ground, but they're covered with blooms. So I don't know that I really want to prune them. What is your advice about that?
All right. Thank you for the question. Very good question. Wow. It sounds like she's using some of that Miracle Grow or something.
8 to 10 foot tall is pretty impressive.
Wow.
I saw somewhere, and who knows, maybe it was an old wives' tale or they doctored the photo, but I saw someone who had a 26 foot tall tomato vine one time. So that's not out of the question to have that something that tall. I would expect.
It's pulling the cages right out of the ground.
I get that's a tomato tree.
Yeah.
But anyway, they are putting blooms on, so that is good. If they're healthy otherwise, that is good. We talked a little bit about pruning those lower leaves on some of them to prevent spread of fungal and bacterial diseases. But there is some science behind, they call them, I think, sucker branches or leaves.
Sure.
If you're looking at that, now I wouldn't go too crazy with it, but if you're wanting to prune a little bit, you'll look for those branches that don't have any blossoms on them. You're not going to cut all the green away because they still do need to get that to create the sugars and use the sunlight and use their soil to make the plant successful. But there are some sucker branches that don't produce blooms that if you'd like to, you can cut some of them back. Again, don't go crazy with it, but you can cut some of those back.
All right. Shannon Mallory, we always learn. We promised we would learn something this morning, Mike.
Yes.
I promise. And listener, thank you for calling in with your question.
Are you still there?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I've noticed that if I purchase plants that are started by a local greenhouse, I have considerably better results with my plants. What is your comment concerning that?
So I don't want to get on to anybody or any business for selling something that may not necessarily be local. But if you're getting it from a local nursery in a local greenhouse or somewhere around there, they are going to do their best job to localize it even more. When we go to some of the bigger box stores, they have to use what is available to them and what they can sell en masse. So we may be getting something that would be normally doing well in Kansas City or something. And that's not exactly where we are. They should still do well, and you should be able to get fruit, but those hyper-local ones are going to give us something that they know is going to do well here. So I'm an advocate for both. There you go.
There we go. Shannon Mallory, thank you for the questions.
Thank you. Those are wonderful questions.
For the answers.
For the answers. Thank you for the answers. Thank you for the questions to our listeners. And, wow, I feel like I'm ready to plant some tomatoes.
Yeah.
We should have done that back in March, but
it may be a little late in the season.
We could try.
Maybe in the spring. I don't know. I got to find some direct
Put a notification on your phone in February to go get some seeds.
So it's too late now.
If you transplanted a large plant, but I guess I wouldn't really call that planting a tomato. We're a little late. Yeah.
Well, I have a different strategy, Mike.
Yeah? What's your strategy?
Friends that I know are growing tomatoes.
I just steal one.
No, I don't steal them. All I got to do is call them and say, hey, so how are those tomatoes coming along?
You don't have to grow them or water them or anything. You got a bunch.
You got a bunch of them. I bet you have tomatoes coming out of your ears. Would you like to? I'd like to sure try some of those. Wow! And then they're like, "Come and get a bag of tomatoes."
I'll bring some salt and pepper.
Yes,
yeah, I'll contribute.
All right, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.
That Shannon Mallory with County Cooperative Extension.